immediately. They stayed in our home for a very short while we lived in our first Canadian flat on Hutchison Street before they moved to their own home on Hutchison Street near St. Joseph in Montreal. Shlomo worked very hard in the fur business, sometimes at a factory, sometimes bringing work home. Zelda worked in a sewing factory and also helped Shlomo with the fur at home. They sent their children to very good schools as both were extremely smart students. Srulik went to Herzliya High School after completing elementary school at Talmud Torah, a highly ranked parochial multilingual Hebrew school. He was a Mensa genius, as we've heard. He played mandolin and violin. We were among the few and precious surviving cousins of the Begelman-Zeifman clan, most of whom were murdered in the Holocaust. We met whenever possible at holidays and the simchas throughout those years. Srulik lived a bit of a distance away when walking on Hutchison Street, and my visits to him always revolved around listening to his mandolin playing in his neighborhood, skateboarding, and roller skating. I remember going ice skating and playing hockey outdoors in St. Viator Park with him almost every winter weekend. We stayed out in the cold -50 and -25 degrees Fahrenheit for winter air for 5 to 6 hours on the rink, and I remember our feet burning with cold and taking off our skates next to the fireplace at the park chalet. Then going over to my Aunt Zelda's, famished with hunger, and having her delicious, thick, hot, garlic-filled hamburgers. I remember one Passover when we were about 10 or 12 years old in the 1960s. We both drank lots of kosher wine, and when the Seder was over, he asked me if I wanted to take a walk over to St. Laurent Street, the center of ethnic Montreal, about 4 to 5 miles away. We had done that a few times before. In those days, there was a pet shop on St. Lawrence Street, just south of Sherbrooke, where there were cute puppies in the window that we went to go see as kids. This particular time, we were already older, and I'd moved farther away to Durocher Street in Outremont, but we walked 8 to 10 miles there and back on that Pesach night. We wanted to know if the puppy store was still there. That's all. That's how simple being young was. That's how simple life should be. We spent quite a few summers together in Valmorin, Laurentians, on 15th and 16th Avenue. We fished on the rocks of La Coulette, played on the beach and swam. No water was too cold for him. Played tackle football. No one could tackle him as they hung on to him, dragging them along. Srulik was huge in his best years. He took a bit of a break from the mandolin and music in the summer, but he loved singing and taught me a song. The beautiful traditional native melody, Land of the Silver Birch, sticks in my mind. After our childhood and bar mitzvahs, our lives diverged as we attended different high schools, first only a little, but gradually more and more. We were separated by complicated life experience, by time and by distance, but our core attachment remained. We never lost touch despite the distances. He was a thinker and a kind, honest, talented, educated man who I never heard speak badly of or hurt anyone. He worked for and hoped for a better world always. I will remember him as my cousin who I grew up with. Our similarities stemmed from war and tragedy and scarred families. Our parents wanted only the best for both of us, and they succeeded in giving us a good life. Srulik was many things, but above all, I remember him with a smile on his face, a childish giggle, even as an adult. Whenever he saw me, we talked or took walks together. I feel comfort because I know he was very much loved by many, and he now rests in peace with no more pain or concern. Let us honor his memory today as we remember him for a blessing. Thank you, Abi, for sending that.
Thank you, Abi. Tough acts to follow. Just like my sister mentioned, I fondly remember Uncle Srulik from the Montreal trips when he would return to his very own childhood home to visit his sister, our mother, Sarah Alva-Shalom, and their parents, my bubby Zelda Alva-Shalom and my Zadie Shloime, or Sam Alva-Shalom. In those early visits, it was through my Uncle Srulik that I contracted the comedy bug. Sure, my father, who in his own right is hilarious, was the first one in the family to become a doctor, but Srulik was the first one in the family to do open mic nights. True. He did this in Vancouver years before Seth Rogen even thought about being in diapers. And by the way, he looked more like Seth Rogen than Seth Rogen. You're welcome. Srulik had many comedy stylings, zany ones, claiming to have gone to the Mel Blanc School of Comedic Voices, still not sure if such a thing exists, but if not, even funnier. And his real forte was, as my sister said, impressions. And being the visionary he was, he didn't just do impressions, but he concocted fusion impressions like some sort of mad scientist in the lab of his comedic mind. Amongst these, with such classics, was the infamous Polack cowboy, wishing people cholera as a 19th century Polack might do, all in a John Wayne southern drawl. Hilaria oifen kop, paskudniak. These had me and my family in stitches. These early impressions made an impression on me, as this comedic guru was teaching me the Tao of comedy. Combine the yin and the yang of two conceptual opposites and find in it the holistic oneness of the cosmic laugh. He was my guru or teacher in many ways, not surprising given that his life was the journey of an instructor. As was mentioned, he got his bachelor's at McGill in 72, his MBA in 79, back when having an MBA actually meant something, and he went on to work in and teach finance. He took this skill set with him all the way across the country to Vancouver, ultimately teaching here and eventually becoming an educational consultant, tutor, and mentor, and as mentioned, the National Director for Gifted Children for Mensa, or so his business card claimed. If true or not, still funny. I kid. He was passionate about Mensa and passionate, as we heard, about gifted children because knew he was one. His IQ, only a mere 160. To his last days, there was no puzzle my uncle wasn't obsessed with solving. Now, while those Montreal trips were a very fun taste or time throughout my childhood, those times I visited him here in Vancouver on his home turf was where I found myself truly learning and growing under his tutelage. Picture it. 1986. It's a formative year for Vancouver with its Expo 86, and a formative year for me when my family visited this milestone international event. That summer, my mind became open to new cultures and new realities at the tender age of 6, not much older than my son Max right now. I got to experience and love this city and this province. I came to appreciate BC exports like Nanaimo bars, I hope they're kosher, and cultivated a very healthy future relationship with salmon that I preserve to this day. Omega-3s. And through my uncle and my amazing Aunt Ina's dog, Casey, I learned how to mostly get over my fear of dogs, something my son Max still has right now. Roughly a whole bar mitzvah later, in 1998, I returned to Vancouver with my good friend John on a summer West Coast trip, with my uncle playing now more of a mentor role. He taught me about Edward de Bono, the idea of lateral thinking. This was his thesis, Edward de Bono. This newfangled idea of thinking about how to think, questioning principles, detaching from old patterns and realities. Perhaps most importantly, he introduced me to the work of Baba Ramdas, aka Richard Alpert, a Harvard psychology professor who had worked with Timothy Leary and had a profound midlife transformation driven by, let's call them vegetable pharmaceuticals, evolving his being from a neurotic Jewish professional to a Hindu-inspired guru of sorts, but never really leaving his Jewish neurosis, but observing it from a detached objectivity with humility and a really wonderful Yiddishish sense of humor. In a way, he was what we both strive for as Zelechowsky and soul brothers of other mothers. Someone from our background, our cultural shtetl, who'd found some form of enlightenment and was able to teach that to others in a very high and pure form of modern-day rabbinical practice. We went to Salt Spring Island, to an ashram that I believe carried on the teachings of Ram Das's yogi, or Rebbe, if you will. It was a deep and eye-opening experience for this urban Montrealer about to enter university. I remember taking the ferry there deeply ensconced in Pink Floyd's musical catalog. which was not only Skrillex' favorite band, but as I listened back these past few days, the concept album to his entire life. My uncle and I had a lot in common. How much is genetic and how much came out of me being crafted by the profound impressions he made on me and did for me is unclear. I've just always seen and internally intuited an uncanny similarity to him. And while never really noticing it in the moment, I've come to look back at my life and realize that, come to think of it, I too became an MBA having but sort of wasting, numbers obsessed tutor meets quasi-entrepreneur meets comedian who enjoys playing stringed instruments for musical comedy. Coincidence? Probably not. Of course, if I'm depicting Skrillex' life as pure laughter and adventure, I would be doing a disservice to a man who was dedicated to seeking truth, because those that know him know that he struggled in various deep and significant ways. I believe my uncle was named Israel as a statement by my grandparents about the newly minted state they'd arrived in, a redemption after the horrible carnage. And yet at the same time, I've been reflecting on the true etymology of the word, which I always found fascinating. Our North Star as a Jewish people, this endpoint as a Jewish people, Israel, means, as a rabbi pointed out, struggles with God. It's what our forefather Jacob did, and which is, I believe, the rite of passage of all highly intelligent and sensitive beings and truth seekers and explorers like my uncle. Over time, this struggle in his head might have mellowed, thankfully, but recently the struggle became more physical than mental. And yet, even in the profound weakness of the past few days, when his body was giving out on him, and while my sister and close friends like Bob and Julia couldn't be sure if he really registered who we were, him and I did catch eyes with each other for a moment. And for a moment, I kind of knew that he saw me and I saw him, and he knew that I was him and I knew that he was me, and on some timeless level, we could easily interchange our predicaments and totally identify with each other, like we were each looking at ourselves in an out-of-body experience. And it reminded me of the catchphrase of Baba Ram Dass. It's very simple: be here now, which is meant to mean to fully experience the present, because it's actually all that there is. But in an even more street-smart kind of way, or pragmatic kind of way, I realize what that means is that sometimes in life, even if, like me, you can pick up a phone or send a million emails, which was how I was helping manage my uncle's care for a very long time now from Montreal, sometimes you just need to be here now. And I'm grateful that my sister and I had the chance to be with my uncle one last time, to be there then, and to see him off now. Technically speaking, my uncle is the last of the Zelechowsky clan by name, but these genetic gifts and teachings and impressions carry on through my sister and myself. See, I now get to be the proud uncle of Zelda, a literal chess champion and multi-talent, Billy, a creative genius and preteen entrepreneur who's already made more money than both Skrillex and myself combined, and Bram, a mathematical and musical protege, definitely Mensa, no pressure. Those are tight avuncular shoes to fill. And of course, I am father to my own son, Max, whose hilarious comedic stylings, old soul love of music, uncanny dislike of French, and whose sweet, soft, and harmless face remind me of my mom and my uncle Israel. So it's no wonder that when going through my uncle's things and recharging the missing iPhone no one seemed to have found for ages, that when the screen lit up and I finally saw it, while I hadn't been able to surpass the password to get in, I could see the blended, blurred image in the background was my son. Which makes sense, as my mom used to sometimes unintentionally call Max, my son Max, she'd call him Ellie. And sometimes she'd call Ellie Skrillex. It's true. Today we honor Israel's memory, his influence, and the impressions he made on those he taught, and the many people he shared this earth with from very different walks of life, all of whom were welcome, his wonderful cousins and family across the world, and often total strangers who became friends along the way, and many of whom reciprocated with loving kindness and exponential mitzvahs for caring for Israel. And many of you are here now, today. And many of you are here now in your attention and your spirit. From this day forward, we honor Israel's memory by remembering to live life with curiosity, exploration, obsession, humor, and humility, allowing this Michigan diamond to shine on.
Judy, Abe, and Ellie, that was incredible. Special tribute. Please rise for the Kel Mole, the memorial prayer. El Mole Rachamim, Shoichein Bamroimim, Hamtzei Menuchanachain al Kanfei Ashchina, B'malois Kedoshim Utahoidim Kezoyar Horoki Amazirim, Es Nishmas Yisrael Ben Shloima, Shalach Le'olamai, Bavur Shanachnu Mispalolim Biad Askaras Nishmasai, Biganei Den Tehei Menuchasai, Lochein Baal Harachamim, Yastireu B'Seisei Knafav Le'olamim, V'yitzra'ed b'tzra'ed ha'chaim es nishmasai, Adonai hu nachalasai, v'yanuach b'shalayim al mishkavai, v'noimar, Amen. Just one final thought, you can be seated for a moment. As there is no one who has officially sits Shiva for Srulik, I ask all of you to take a moment today or over the next week to think about doing something in his memory. Not just in his memory, to live with something about him, some of the things that Ellie suggested or that you heard in the remarks today. Don't just remember, please. Live. Because it behooves us here that are here today, those that are be here today, to live him going forward. Thank you. We're now going to go out to the Kvura and ask everyone to please follow behind the casket. You can if you want. Please follow behind.